This is my digital garden, my web of knowledge, and by the end of this video you might be inspired to create one for yourself. But before that, we consume a lot of content: YouTube videos, podcasts, university lectures, books, articles, newsletters, reels and TikToks. And at the end of the day, what is left of all of this in our minds is sometimes pretty much nothing. The book notes stay in the books, podcasts go from one ear in and one ear out, newsletters pile up in our inbox with 1,000 unread emails, and especially in the stream of the online content that the algorithm pushes us, most of it runs like water through our hands, at most getting sent to a friend or getting saved to a folder that we never get back to. And rather than feeling freed and empowered by all this information, we tend to feel as captives by all this scrolling and consuming. And that won't do in our seeking of freedom, will it? I wanted to remember the thought-provoking bits, to connect the dots, to develop my own thinking, and most importantly, in a certain crossroads of my life that I am in, I wanted to know what really matters to me. And that's when I found out about digital gardening, and now rather than being captured by the stream of information and content, I am planting my own garden. I'll tell you exactly what I mean by digital gardening. I'll show you how I use Obsidian to grow a network of ideas, and I'll share how it's helping me to grow my purpose and passion given all the multiple interests that I have. There's a couple of concepts similar to digital gardening. One of them is the second brain. It's a term coined by Tiago Forte, I believe. It's a digital system for capturing, organizing, distilling, and expressing your ideas to create connections between them. I have videos on my channel on how to build your second brain, both using Notion and Xtiles. Another one is commonplace books, and those have a history of hundreds of years. They are personal collections of quotes, ideas, reflections. While they were obviously physical to start with, these days you can apply the same principles and make your commonplace books digital. Digital gardens are similar. You can think of them like digital notebooks or maybe personal wikis. If you think of Wikipedia, how it's structured, they are places for ideas to be cultivated over time, just like plants in a garden, through connecting and interlinking your notes and thoughts. Someone has called it a thought ecosystem, staying with the nature theme. So if you think of social media and blogs, there is this time-based, stream-like structure where the posts appear in chronological order. And digital gardens are different in the sense that they organize information based on context and like associative links. And just like gardens, you can always plant more seeds, and the seeds you've planted, they are growing and evolving and connecting over time. And if you think of publications like books, they often claim to be this end of all thought through sources of information, which digital gardens do not claim to be, because they are, a work in process, but they are still a step ahead from the chaotic streams of like WhatsApp DMs. These gardens are also very personal because they are structured based on the personal, unique interests and thought connections that the creator makes. They can combine many different types of mediums. There's text, images, tables, sketches, links, and they are also independently owned, unlike social media content. If you're old enough, you might remember those early stages of internet when you could just stumble upon a personal website that would have all kinds of interesting subpages reflecting the personal interests of the creator, and there would also be links to, outside pages, and you could just kind of explore endlessly. And it's quite different from these curated feeds on social media that we see today. Let's see if this TV show intro brings a sense of nostalgia to some of you. So this is a good reflection how I always used to see internet, these endless rooms and things to explore. I started using internet when I was maybe 7 years old, around 1999 or 2000. And I have been reminiscing those days because I feel these times it's very difficult to find something that you saw last week on Instagram or something that somebody sent on a group chat on WhatsApp, because everything kind of expires soon. It gets buried away to give way for more viral things. If today's internet rewards sensationalism, I think digital gardens give you a space to go deeper and add more nuance to your thoughts. So what digital gardens actually do, they bring back this way to explore based on interest and not timeliness. This is my digital garden where the green dots represent wider themes of interests. The blue ones are concepts that mostly fall under those themes. The orange dots are source material, so different books and articles that I consume. The pink dots are my original thoughts that I get when I consume these materials. And then there's also the purple dots. Those are my yin yoga class sequences. In addition, I use tags to define whether my notes are in the garden theme seeds, so very underdeveloped early stage notes. Saplings are notes that there are notes there, but I think they will still grow. Or maybe they are already fully developed trees that I don't expect to change that much. So let me explain why I am going to this extent to organize my notes and thoughts. I graduated from an urban planning degree about 8 years ago, and to be honest, I don't have much of anything tangible to show or talk about when it comes to things that I learned. Back then, I did not even use to take digital notes. Of course, I did work for quite some years in my sector, so some of the knowledge has really been engraved. But you know, those little glimmers of curiosity that maybe some scientific articles sparked, those have been long forgotten. And in university, of course, we were really in the mindset of learning. We used to write essays, to work with the source material, develop our own ideas. But whatever I have learned after university, the loss of that information has probably been even greater. I'm also in a stage of my life where I'm reconsidering what I really want to do, my, future career, sources of income, lifestyle, and I consume huge amounts of content to learn about new things and develop my ideas. I have an endless watch later playlist on YouTube, and I have tons of folders on TikTok where I save all kinds of little interesting things. But I never seem to get back to those ideas. I have a bit of a shiny object syndrome, so I rush after every little new exciting direction that I find, and it can make choosing a direction to focus on a little bit difficult. With all this mindless consumption amounting to pretty much nothing, and the stream of content just slipping through my hands, I thought I cannot connect the dots that I don't collect first. So the whole idea really came when I saw other people's obsidian networks of information, and I thought to myself, like, hey, this could be a good way for me to map all my interests, see how they link with each other, see which areas tend to grow, what am I actually curious about, what matters. And in this way, because I don't have the time and money to do absolutely everything, I could choose maybe a bit more focused on which courses to take and certifications to pursue. So I started mapping. First, I am focusing on all the information that I'm learning in my yin yoga training. I am actually currently here in Koh Phangan, Thailand. And as you can see, it links to a lot of different things. Traditional Chinese medicine, the 5 elements theory, the different meridians that we work with, different body systems. I have a few other clusters forming. There's urban planning, sustainability related themes, agriculture, herbalism, knowledge management, vitamins, mindfulness, neuroplasticity, psychocybernetics, flow state, all these productivity related themes, non-toxic living, community, financial and location freedom. And just like I predicted with this visual, I am starting to develop a sense of what I'm interested in, pattern recognition, having structure to my personal curiosity, knowing what really matters to me, not just what is trending or what is within a certain niche that I maybe thought I am in. And using interlinking and tags, I can literally see these clusters forming. It also can help with the pressure that many people feel about finding their one true purpose. There's not really such thing. There is a web of curiosity branches, and one cluster may need your attention in this phase of life, and perhaps later you can tend to another, maybe related cluster, expanding your expertise. And it's really up to you to choose a curiosity path to follow. It's kind of one of those find your own path games. If you're interested in making your own garden, you can start with the courses you're taking, things that you always find time to read or talk about, and things that you always stop to watch on social media, even if they don't relate to your current work or hobbies in any way. One example of this kind of interest for me could be Karelian mythology. I am actually, or my family comes from the region of Finland that was lost to Soviet Union in the Second World War. And as these internally displaced people were integrating to the rest of Finnish society, a lot of the traditions were lost, and I'm not really much in touch with that type of history of my family. So I always stop to listen if something about it pops up on my TikTok feed, and beautifully this also links to another interest that I have, which is indigenous wisdom in general. One use case I would really recommend this to is students. So when you start your studies, maybe start taking your notes on this kind of system and start interlinking things, developing your own thoughts, and when it's time to write your thesis, you are so many steps ahead of everyone else because you can not only pick your topic of interest, maybe you see what has grown and what you are curious about, but you can also narrow it down to all those different branches and perspectives you could explore. Obviously, digital gardening doesn't have to stop at mapping your interests. You can always learn more, take more notes, maybe develop your own original ideas, and eventually, maybe these interconnected notes can become books, essays, YouTube videos, and courses. These can be considered the fruits of your digital gardening. Actually, maybe I need to add a tag of fruit for any original content like YouTube videos that I end up creating. This is how we move from being passive consumers to active creators. And if you think of any fruits like books, they are essentially just collection of notes tied together in a way that makes sense. And if you stick to the idea of keeping your note pages quite brief, you can actually use every single note for different purposes instead of the ideas getting lost in these massive note pages. So this is how I take my notes. I have different folders for different types of notes. I've got my source material, so anything I consume. I have original notes, which are my own original ideas, not anything I copied from a book. I have the tags, which are the bigger themes that I'm into, and then I have concepts. And I think if one concept seems to grow a lot, I would make it a tag. And then I also have my class sequences as I plan to teach yin yoga. I've made a template that allows me to add a date, tags, and related concepts to the note page, as well as references where I got this information from. Then there's the notes where I can also add images, tables, quotes. And you can make this gardening a daily or a weekly ritual to, well, garden, tend to your own mind. Maybe you set time aside to consume different mediums, taking notes, reflecting on ideas, adding commentary, making links with different topics, collecting evidence and counter-arguments, spot trends, find the revelations and unexpected connections. When you consume raw material and reflect on it, preferably in your own words, as if you're explaining it to someone else, this really facilitates learning. It develops your pattern recognition, helps you to put these things into your long-term memory, and also it helps you to develop your own novel ideas. And remember that this is an alive garden that you tend to. It is not a backyard where you just dump all of your junk. This is not a filing cabinet for dusty notes. You're no longer using content for just entertainment or numbing, but instead you can think of yourself as a researcher, a journalist, a detective, whichever sounds coolest to you. In this way, you develop your very own interests, connections, your personal taste. And cultivating your passions through curiosity automatically will take you a little bit away from the mainstream. My personal plan is to develop my digital garden in Obsidian, probably not publish it as such, but develop my original content for YouTube, hopefully a newsletter also later, and maybe I will take bits and pieces of my digital garden and publish them on Substack or something. I can see several ways in which digital gardens can act as a social movement. I already talked about becoming an active creator after being a passive consumer. In addition, creating my own digital garden has really shifted my focus to be able to shift from only short form content and scrolling to actually picking up a book or reading an article or watching a long video essay, because I really need good quality, in-depth content in order to seed my garden and my mind. While you can totally use short form content to get ideas and reflect on them, I feel like digital gardens are kind of an antithesis for this fast and superficial type of content. It's more about consuming media with intention, slowly, being present, cultivating depth of thinking, no longer being a captive of fast dopamine hits from TikTok, but a free thinker. If we are not in the best place when it comes to our self-worth, we might feel that it's pointless to spend so much time cultivating our own interests and thoughts. But I do believe curiosity is a very powerful medicine for depression, and we all really have gifts to share with the world. So when we jot down our own ideas and thoughts, I feel like it's a way of developing that self-worth, knowing that my cultivation of ideas is valuable. It can also be thought of as a form of resistance, reclaiming time, attention, originality. I also do wonder if digital gardening could give us some of the benefits of actual gardening. Of course, huge part of that is the nature connection, so that we are not getting. But maybe this certain way of mindfulness. It's a way to emulate how nature and ecosystems work, and I believe the nature is very wise and a good teacher for other areas of life. Now in my 30s, I'm also thinking of what am I building? My adventures from my 20s do not really seem very relevant, especially with nothing to show for them. Of course, they've been a very important part of my story, but I am starting to get attracted to the idea of building a legacy of sorts. I do believe that when we gain age, we also gain a lot of wisdom, which is good to share with future generations. And of course, our fruits of our labor and thinking can be monetized as well. This legacy can be shared with wider community. And we also have communal gardens, so maybe digital gardens could also be a way of building up knowledge together. I feel like TikTok kind of brought this trend of unpolished content, and it kind of feels like conversation sometimes when you go on TikTok, and that's why it's probably very popular. And I also see same potential in digital gardens because it's kind of unfinished thoughts that maybe could be developed together in a conversation. I'm thinking this could be especially valuable in areas that are not well documented, perhaps long forgotten, and in the risk of disappearing. If you want to learn more about digital gardens, I will leave a bunch of links in the description. Go ahead and explore your curiosity. I'll also leave a link to my Free Will series playlist. This video is part of a series where we explore freedom within and externally, and I hope you enjoyed. Be well, take care, bye.